Okay, we're going to go over the cell and heredity unit test or genetics unit test. So question number 1, Hydra reproduced by a process known as budding. Okay, so that's the important thing there as shown in the diagram below. Okay, oops, sorry guys. So budding. This process is the formation of a new individual that is a clone, meaning exactly the same, of the parent. So budding and a clone all indicate that this process is actually going to be asexual. Remember, it has one parent. It's coming from that one parent. So it's asexual. And we talked about that in our notes, and we talked about it in class. Number 2, what would be a possible disadvantage of asexual reproduction? So disadvantage meaning a negative, something bad. Okay, a disadvantage of asexual reproduction. So what is something bad about it? So that would have been like the negative column of your notes when we were talking about it. So if we look at our answer choice, it says F, ability to reproduce in the absence of a mate. Okay, so not having a mate, they'd still be able to reproduce. And actually that's a positive. So that's not a disadvantage. Number 2, results in low genetic variation of a species. Well, we know that is true. There's not going to be a lot of genetic variation, not a lot of difference between the offspring and its parent. So I'm going to leave that one. We said it wasn't this one for sure. And I'm going to leave the next one because I'm not sure. Letter H allows for more genetic variation in offspring. That is completely false. It does not allow for variation. So I know that's not even a choice I can pick. So I'm going to cross that one out. Takes less time to produce offspring. So that would be possibly another benefit. Okay, but we're looking for a disadvantage. So I'm going to cross that out. So the only logical choice is G. G is our answer choice. I meant to highlight that. So G is your answer. Delete. Okay, number 3. In sexual reproduction, how many genes does an offspring receive for each trait? Okay, so if we think about sexual reproduction, we have 2 parents in sexual reproduction. So the answer choice A is not correct. There's 2 parents. Okay, so that leaves my answer to be B. B. Okay, question 4. The diagram below represents different processes involved in reproduction. Which diagram or diagrams represent sexual reproduction? Okay. So we talked about this in class, and let's see if I can get my text box real quick. Okay. Remember, flowers are sexual. Remember, eggs and sperm, sexual. Amoebas, look, they're making a copy of themselves. And the Hydra was from question 1, which was asexual. You could have looked back if you had questions. So we need to find 1 and 2 in our answer choice. Okay, so not F. I'm going to cross F out. Not that one. Not that one, because we're looking for 1 and 2. And not that one. So the answer for number 4 should have been J. J. Number 5. Heredity is defined as the passage of genetic instruction from one generation to the next. which of the following is not an example of these genetic instructions in humans? Okay, so what do we get from our parents? So A, height, B, skin color, C, dimples, and D, spoken language. Remember, spoken language is a learned trait. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I crossed out the wrong one. So delete that. Remember, height, skin color, and dimples are all inherited traits, and we're trying to find the one that is not an example. Not an example. So just like I kind of messed up, remember, go and highlight those things in the question so you can remember it when you're looking at it to verify that you did it right. Because just like I did, you could have made a mistake there. So number 5 is D. Number 6, where is the genetic material that determines inherited traits of an organism located inside of a eukaryotic cell? Okay, so genetic material, eukaryotic cell is what I need to think about. Oh my gosh, there it goes again. Okay. There, eukaryotic cell. Okay, so cytoplasm is the jelly. So you shouldn't have said that one. Cytoplasm is the jelly. That's where all the organelles live. Vacuole is the bag. So you wouldn't have picked that one. And we didn't really talk about the ribosomes in class. So you should not have picked J. So your answer for number 6 should have been H. Okay, number 7, an organism inherits its genetic instruction from the organism's offspring. Okay, that doesn't make sense. An organism cannot receive its genetic information from its babies, the organism's parents, the organism's mating partner, and the organism's prey. So you should have definitely crossed out the prey. We didn't talk about that at all this unit. The partner, that would only apply to the offspring. So 7 should be B. B. Number 8, female Komodo dragons can reproduce using a process called parthenogenesis. Parthenogenesis is a form of asexual reproduction. So they're telling you that it's asexual. So if you had forgotten, it tells you right here in the sentence, asexual, and then it tells you what it is, where a unfertilized egg develops into an offspring. So they even defined what it was, and they told you it was asexual. Okay, which of the following is an advantage? So a good thing of the offsprings being formed from parthenogenesis. So advantages of parthenogenesis. So what's an advantage of asexual reproduction? That's what you should have thought about. Okay, so when we're going through, the genetic diversity is increasing in the offspring. Okay, does diversity increase with asexual? No, because it's exact copy of its parent. So we can cross that one out right away. The population can form a new era of individual organisms. Well, that could be true, so I'm going to leave that one alone right now. H, offspring are more resistant to diseases than their parent. Okay, they're exact copies of their parent, so they're not more resistant. So I'm going to cross that one out. Members of the population are genetically similar. Okay, so now, again, I'm looking for the advantage of parthenogenesis. So being genetically similar is not necessarily an advantage. So I'm going to cross that one out. It should really be G. So number 8 is G. Number 9, what is an advantage of offspring produced from sexual reproduction? So what is an advantage? I'm going to highlight advantage of sexual reproduction. So it's going to be kind of the opposite as a question before. And again, you had your thinking map, or you can use that. So offspring may be unfit for the environment which they are formed. Okay, that is true. They may be, but is that a advantage? I don't know. So I'm going to skip that one. B, traits are consistently conserved from generation to generation. Okay, I'm not really sure what that's saying, so I'm going to skip that one too for now. Offspring are able to have more advantageous traits than their parents. That could be true. We've talked about survival of the fittest and adaptations, so that definitely could be true. Offspring are smaller and more active than their parents. Well, that one I know for sure is not necessarily true. We don't know what the offspring's activities might be. Okay, so I'm going to cross out B just because that does not sound like anything we really talked about with conserve from generation to generation. I don't even really know what that means. So I'm just going to cross that one out because it's probably not the answer choice. And then A, offspring may be unfit for the environment which they are formed. Okay, unfit meaning that's not a good thing. It's not an advantage. We would want them more fit. That would be the advantage. So I'm going to cross that one out now because I know that's definitely not it. So C is the answer. Number 9 is C. Okay, question 10 is saying which of the following scenarios of reproduction is most likely to form diverse offspring? So diverse offspring is what we're looking for, which would be sexual reproduction. Remember, asexual is going to create less diversity because they are exact copy of their parents. Okay, so a female's cat body collects sperm cells from multiple mates and uses a cell all at once to generate a litter. Okay, G, bacteria cell replicates exponentially in a nutrient-rich environment to generate a large colony. Okay, and then H, a scientist cuts a branch off of a tree and applies a root growth hormone to cause the branches to grow into a mature tree. Or J, an individual hydra produces a bud which breaks off of the animal to form a new adult. Okay, so I'm looking for the one that's most likely to form the diverse offspring. Okay, so I'm going to start with J because I know Hydra, for a fact, is asexual because we've talked about that several times on this test. Okay, a scientist cuts a branch off of the tree. Okay, so remember that's like asexual where we're taking parts of the plant and we're cutting it off and we're growing it somewhere else. So it's definitely not H. And the bacteria makes copies of itself. We've talked about that too. So I know it's not G. So the only possible answer is F. That's the only one that's talking about sexual reproduction, which is going to form the most diverse. The other examples are all asexual reproduction. Okay, 11. Which of the following scenarios of reproduction is most likely to form uniform offspring? So uniform meaning the exact same. Uniform offsprings. If we were wearing a uniform, we're going to look very similar to each other. Okay? So I'm going to pick the one that is a asexual scenario here. So pollen from a flower. Okay, we've already talked about the flower being sexual reproduction. We already did that question once in our test. So a flower is sexual reproduction. A fish laying eggs. Okay, we know if it has eggs, it's sexual reproduction. Spores are formed from 2 cells. Okay, so it's telling us 2 cells. So from fungi, and that was in our reading, and that was sexual reproduction. So I know the answer has to be D. So 11 is D. Number 12, which cell components are responsible for the inherited traits that a pea plant possesses? Which cell components? So what parts of the cell? So in this one, we're going to say components, cell components, inherited traits. Okay, so where can we find the traits? So F said chromosomes, mitochondria, I should say, vacuoles. Okay, that's not the answer because it does not mention the nucleus. Remember, the nucleus holds the DNA, the chromosomes, whatnot. So definitely can't be the answer. Okay, G says DNA, nucleus, chromosomes. Oh, that might be the answer. Let's double check. H, gene, cytoplasm, cell membrane. So it's definitely that one because it doesn't mention the nucleus. And the last one, DNA, protein, chloroplast. That is definitely not the answer. So 12 is G. 12 is G. Which of the following components is least likely to affect the visible traits of an organism? Okay, so 13, which of the cell components? So that's what we're looking for, cell components. Least likely to affect the visible. So least likely. Least likely. Okay, so we know the answer cannot be nucleus on this one. We know the answer cannot be genes because that's what we have inside the cell that controls what we look like. And we know the answer cannot be D. So the only one that makes sense is A. 13 is A. It says jellyfish are soft-bodied, free-swimming aquatic animals. They reproduce sexually by releasing egg and sperm into the water. The egg and sperm unite in fertilization and create a new jellyfish polyp. Which following best describes the jellyfish? Okay, so we know there is egg and sperm here. So it has to be sexual reproduction just because of that. Okay, so let's read our answer choices. F, the jellyfish polyp would be genetically identical. Well, that is telling us asexual, and we know that can't be true because we have an egg and sperm. So that cannot be true. The jellyfish polyp will be diverse combination of the parent jellyfish genetic information or material. So it will be a diverse combination of the parent jellyfish genetic information. That might be our answer, but let me keep looking. H, the jellyfish polyp will have twice as much genetic material as the parent. Okay, we do not get twice as much. Okay. The jellyfish polyp would be genetically identical to its siblings. In sexual reproduction, we cannot say that every sibling is genetically identical. So we have to cross that one out just because it does not make that much sense. So 14 should be, what types of organisms have cells with very large vacuoles? Okay, so 15, what types of organism have large vacuoles? So I'm going to highlight large vacuoles. And remember, animals, we have small vacuoles. Bacteria, we didn't really cover that they have a vacuole. Remember, they're eukaryotic. They do not have all the organelles that plant and animal cells have. Fungi is a plant, but it's not the same as this one. So it should be D. D. And fungi have a different type of cells that we didn't really talk about this year, but they are eukaryotic cells, but theirs looks a little bit different. You'll learn about that in biology. Number 16. Which phrase best describes the function of the mitochondria? Okay, so we want best describes the mitochondria. Okay, so remember the mitochondria is the powerhouse. So located in the cytoplasm. Well, all the organelles inside a eukaryotic cell is inside the cell cytoplasm except for the cell membrane. Let's see, bacteria-sized organelle. No, we're going to say no to that one because it's not really bacteria. Converts energy for cell use. Remember, it's the nickname the powerhouse, so I'm going to leave that one. And then J contains folded inner membrane, and we didn't really talk about that, so the best answer choice should be H, which is telling you the function. Okay, number 17. Which of the following do all living organisms have in common? So what do all cells have? Or what do all, I should say, all living things, but it has to go with the cell theory, is what I meant to say. So A, cells held up by cell walls. Well, no, not all cells have cell walls. A method to get water, food in their cells. That's not true because plants and animal cells function very differently as far as food production. C, cells are made from pre-existing cells. That could be true. That has to go with cell theory. Or D, special cells that can do many different things. That is not the answer. So it should be C. Because some organisms are unicellular, so they wouldn't have special cells. Okay, 18. Which structures identify the type of cell shown above? Okay, so why do we know this is a plant cell? Several people try to ask me this question, but why do we know this is a plant cell? If we look at the different structures, one thing that how we know it's a plant cell is that because of the shape, and the shape is caused by the cell wall. So we know that number 1 should be there. So in our answer choices, notice that they all have the number 1. Okay. So what else makes it different than an animal cell? Well, the vacuole would be another one. So this big swimming pool-like organism or organelle. So I would look for that in my answer choice. So this one does not have that one. This one. So that leaves the 2 H and J. Okay, so H has this one, which is the one that looks like it has pancakes or money stacked up. Remember, that is the chloroplast. Okay. And then this J has this extra, which is the nucleus, which plants and animals both have a nucleus. So I know I can cross that one out with confidence now that that is not my answer choice. So my answer is H. 18 is H. It is the cell wall, the vacuole, and the chloroplast that makes it different. Number 9, what kind of cell is represented? Again, I can tell this is a plant cell because it's rectangle. So I know it's not an animal. I know it's not bacteria. I know it's not a virus. So the answer for 19 should have been B. Okay, which cell organelle stores DNA? Okay, this is a common question on this test. You should recognize it as the nucleus. We've talked about that. Oops. So the answer for 20 should have been J. Through which cell structure does waste exit the cell? So exiting, what is our fence gate? Okay, and that was A. So 21, you should have had A, is our fence gate. The cell membrane, it lets things in and out of the cell. Again, you could have used your foldable or your notes over cell organelles. 22, the fluid that surrounds the organelles. So this time I'm looking for the fluid. That sounds like the jelly. So I'm going to cross out the chloroplast because that's the green kitchen. I'm going to cross out the mitochondria, which is the powerhouse. And I'm going to cross out the cell membrane, which is the fence gate. Okay, so 22 should have been G. The purpose of the cell wall is to, remember the cell wall is the bones. So we're looking for something that says bones or structure. What regulates what goes in and out? Nope, that's the fence gate, which is the cell membrane. Controls the functions of the cell, that is the brain, the nucleus. Converts energy. Nope, that's the mitochondria. Provides structure for the cell. So 23, you should have had D. 24, which of the following statement accurately represents the differences in plant and animals? So by now, hopefully you got this, the differences in plant and animal. Remember, we talked about the cell wall. So F, only plant cells have cell wall, chloroplast, and vacuole. So G, only animal cells have cell wall. Well, I know that's not true because we don't have cell walls. We have bones. Only plant cells have cell membrane. Oh, I know that's not true because we have a cell membrane and we're animals. Only animals have cell membrane, mito, and that's not true either because I know plants have them. So 24 is F. 24 is F. And the last question, the primary function. What is the function of the chloroplast? Remember that nickname is the green kitchen. And it's just in the plants. Convert food into energy a cell can use. B, control the function of a cell and control genetic traits. I know it can't be that one. A, could possibly, I'm going to make sure, convert radiant energy into chemical energy through photosynthesis. And that's why it's called the green kitchen. So it has to be C. I'm so glad I kept reading and didn't go with the first one. So 25 was C. Make sure you read through all your answer choices, even though the first one maybe you thought it could be, because we said it's a green kitchen, but the C was a much better choice because it's converting radiant energy to chemical energy and it's doing photosynthesis. Okay, that was your test. So hopefully you can do your retake now.